All right, we have reached week 11 of the season, of the NFL season. I'm sporting my Durham Bulls jersey, and welcome to the live feed here, week 11. Hope you like the cover. I just couldn't resist. Remember to follow me at the Radio Mic. And let's get to something, as you can see right on the screen right now. I'm proud to announce, and I've never done this before. I've never been a writer of any kind. I've been a broadcaster. I've done some TV work. I've done some stuff with my blog that I've had. But now I am officially a contributing writer to 14 Personnel. Follow these guys, 14personnel.com. They're on Twitter at 14personnel. And search them. They've got a podcast. Getting to know these guys. I love them. And my first article was some buy low candidates for week 11. Go to my Twitter, at the Radio Mic, as you see, and you'll see some of them. Some of my buy lows. I got Lamar, Cam Newton, Damian Harris. But I want you to read the article. I'm going to get killed for this because I have some Patriots on there and because I'm a Patriots fan, but that's not why. This is the big news this week. How many people have typed this? You have to, right? But then look it over here. Okay, still $4,800. So let's start with this because I think this is the big news. I think we get caught up in the chalk, right? What do we do with chalk? Well, you definitely want to be different. We know that. I think, and again, this is what's great about doing this. We can be wrong. You have to play him at the tight end spot on FanDuel. If you're late to the party, Taysom Hill, and this always means there's news, as we're going to see. Saints not announcing starting quarterback for Sunday, but it's been reported that Jameis Winston would not play, okay? Is not going to be part of the offense. We'll see. But that's been circulating a lot. So you have to play this guy here because he's a quarterback, all right? And at his worst, what do you think his worst game would be? Let's look at some of his games. Look at this. Just 2 targets, touchdown. If he throws 1 touchdown and throws for 100 yards, that's going to bring back value at that position. Now, you can get funky. You might be able to do this. Look at this. I mean, that could be a stack. I mean, this is crazy what you could do. I mean, will someone actually do this weekend? I mean, look at that. Without having a... and you can, so essentially you can have a double stack here. 2 stacks. But I think, honestly, maybe in the million maker where it's 150 lineups, but I just think this is where you have to start. You really do. Quarterback at the tight end position, which has been a mess. Now, I like some tight ends this week. I want to start there. I do. I like going back to Hawkinson. I think some of the games that the tight ends are in good spots. Points, 28 implied total for Mark Andrews. High price tag that will shy people away. Cook against Atlanta. I know a few years ago. I think it was the first or it might have been the second time those two teams played where I think the first time they played, I think one of the teams scored in the 50s, and the second game was the opposite. Division games can be weird, and everybody was playing Jones, and it didn't work out. That happens. But there's a lot of tight ends here priced up on FanDuel. FanDuel's a site I really like playing on now because I feel like you don't have to get as wacky as you do on DraftKings. We'll get to DraftKings in a minute. But Again, Taysom Hill qualifies as a tight end on FanDuel. He's going to start a quarterback for New Orleans. You got to play him, but I do like some of these matchups for some of these tight ends. Here's my quarterback I like. I think so essentially you're going to play two quarterbacks this week with Hill and whoever. Now, I could see Rodgers being a fade. This is going to scare people off. It shouldn't. I know Indianapolis has been good against a quarterback. It's Aaron Rodgers. I like this week that if you look around, that there's what they say, no true chalk quarterbacks because Mahomes is not on the schedule. It's making it harder. Breeze is hurt. But I don't agree necessarily. I mean, Lamar Jackson at home with a 28 total, implied total. I mean, his floor is pretty good. He's still, look at his, we forget last week, he still had 22 points in that game. Tennessee's not a great defense. This was a monsoon, and it's going to be interesting to see what his ownership is. I think, now with Breeze out, though, I think people will go here with Herbert at home and Roethlisberger, and I think for cash games that makes sense. But I really like Lamar here. But here's the guy I like. I like Cam Newton this week, and I think Cam Newton, you might be able to run out naked. Yeah, it sounds weird, meaning no stack. But maybe you go a Newton-Damian Harris stack, which sounds weird. I don't know if I would do that necessarily on DraftKings, but I might do it on FanDuel. And the reason I wouldn't on DraftKings is because it's not PPR. Oh, it's PPR on DraftKings, where Damian Harris is not that pass-catching back. It's been Rex Burkhead. But here's what I like, and knowing how the Patriots are. Houston is terrible against the run. And the way Bill Belichick always operates, I'll go back to that. Who was that running back that did this? Was it Gray against the Colts? I think it was the only game he played for the Patriots. He scored 3 or 4 touchdowns. The Patriots know what they are. They don't have terrific receivers. Jacoby Myers has been great, and I think a lot of people are going to stack Newton with Myers, but I don't think that's necessarily how this game will go. And feel free to send some comments. We're getting some, I think, getting some people asking for advice, and I'll get to you in a minute on that. But I do think that they're going to run the heck out of the ball. This is what they do. And they did it last week against a good run defense, and I think that's their thing. And Cam is priced $7,600 in kind of a spot where you could see people go Burrow. You could see people go to Watson, Stafford, Wentz. But I like this spot for Cam. I really do, because I think he has 2 touchdown rushing upside, maybe 3 in this game. You know, if you look at his duds, look at this game against Seattle. This was the pass defense. And what did they do? They threw the ball a lot in that game. Last week they ran the ball a lot. But you're still getting, this game you got basically 55 44 attempts, 11 rushes. I like the fact that he could get 2 rushing touchdowns. I think Damian Harris could get 1 or 2. So, I think if you stacked Newton with Harris, which I'm actually thinking of doing, I think it's an unconventional stack because Harris doesn't catch touchdowns. I'm trying for the stack of thinking that the Pats are going to score 4 to 5 touchdowns all rushing. That might not happen. That might be kind of nuts, but hey, nutty things have won tournaments, so I do like Cam in this spot. I think we had a question. Is it TS? Sit 1, PPR, Godwin, Ridley, Deontay, Brandon Cooks. Man, are you kidding me? That's pretty good. So, I'll tell you, here's the issue I have with season long. I'm awful in season long. I am 0-10 in a season long league because I cannot do both. I cannot do DFS in season long. I get clouded because in season long you have to play studs regardless of matchups. So in that, watch the Ridley injury. I think he's playing. Yeah, we'll play in week 11. I don't think you can sit Ridley in that game. Godwin and you've got Deontay and Cooks. That's a tough one. I think in a PPR in season-long league, you say Ridley is a go. I would say Cooks is a go because Cooks, to me, is a deep threat. Oh, I see what you mean. Ridley is a go. I got you. I'm slow. I would say Cooks. And, yes, Cooks has, we know, 2 to 3 touchdown potential. I get they're playing the Patriots. I don't, come on. Revenge game. Give me a break. But the targets are there too. And you're going to have Gilmore probably on Fuller. But I still think that this can happen. Look at the floor for Cooks. 3-0. Look at some of that. So the other guys, Ridley is a beast. Now, I think in season long with receivers, you want targets. I mean, look at this. Yeah, I get the 0 here, but he's pretty good with targets. So Jeff says sit Godwin. Yeah, I could see that because that's kind of a murky situation too with Brown. Adding Brown and Evans and Gronk, and you have Brady in the way that they operate. You have Ridley against New Orleans. You have Deontay, who I love, in a game against Jacksonville. Boy, that's you got 4 unbelievable receivers, and you know what happens, of course. They're the one you sit. I think I'm going to go with Jeff. Jeff, I kind of you sold me on Godwin. You sold me on that. All right, let's quickly get to some running backs. I mean, how can you not love Dalvin Cook this week? I still think you shouldn't be scared away. All right? Here's why. Sean Payton's very good at what he does. He loves Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill is going to be fine in this game. Don't be scared of that. Some sleeper in tournaments, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry. I like going back to Mike Davis. There was some other guys I love. Of course, I like, Damian Harris. And this is an interesting situation, too. Look where Rex Burkhead is priced. And why? Burkhead seems to get the touchdowns. If you did the showdowns, look at 2 touchdowns. One was on a trick play. But that's an interesting. I don't know if this is a Rex Burkhead game if Harris plays because I think they're going to run the ball more. Balaj, I think in cash games, is going to be highly owned. I think this is a great sleeper against a bad defense. But again, go with game script. Do you think that the Colts are going to run the ball a lot? It depends. It depends how this goes. I mean, this is the guy that won people a lot of money, Hines. It depends how this game will go. I think that the Indy is a tough team to figure out what they are going to do offensively, a lot like San Francisco. So I would think for any of their running backs, I'd play them in tournaments. That's what I would do. All right, receivers. I mean, Devontae Adams. Michael Thomas is an excellent GPP play. He's going to be, this is where you win tournaments. Because of this. But look at this. The targets are there, and it's Michael Thomas. And I don't care who's the quarterback. You know why? He could score 2 touchdowns inside the 5 where Hill rolls out, does a bootleg, and he scores 2 touchdowns. You get it 50 yards. If he has 50 yards, 6 catches, 2 touchdowns, what is that? It's pretty good, even on FanDuel. So that's an excellent tournament play because Jones at New Orleans, Keenan Allen at home against the Jets. Even Thielen. Here's a couple of guys I think you should look at. in this game. More on DraftKings, but even Lamb and Gallup against the bad defense. This seems to work a lot in DFS. Teams that are bad defensively. Again, one of my key tips for DFS is this. You should want to know the answers to the questions. I know that sounds weird. What does that mean? Why do you? And I say it too much too. So just, virtually kick me in the face for saying it. I always start with implied totals. And I take the Vegas, I go to the Fantasy Labs implied totals, and I put them on an Excel sheet. And then sometimes I manipulate those where I might add 6 points to a team who I think will win or who I think is already favored will score more. Put those down, your implied totals first, okay? Because you ask why. Well, if you want to know who to play, you should look for players in games with high implied totals. Last week, and you know what I do? I go back and I say, damn, this was staring me right in the face. The Raiders had a 28-point implied total, and nobody played Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was in the millionaire lineup. Vegas had the Raiders to score 28 points. More than likely, if a team is favored, which they were, if they're going to score 28 points, you would think their number one running back will more than likely, probability-wise, score a couple touchdowns. I ignored it. A lot of people ignored it. Now, in this game, Minnesota is expected to score a lot of points. So, what are some rules? Andy Dalton's back, which is good. We've seen in these games, I think Minnesota could blow the doors off of Dallas. But this is a fourth quarter where you could get, tons and tons of garbage time. And I think that with the way Minnesota is against the pass, some of these guys are underpriced for the potential production. Now, this, more tournaments here. A guy like Gallup at 5,400. Lamb, and I think Cooper especially on DraftKings as well. Let's get to some questions. Pick between Brady and Matty Ice. That's a tough one. I'd probably go Matt Ryan. Could you pivoting to Aaron Jones over Cook and DFS this week pay off? Good pivot potentially? Yeah. But price differential. Listen, we know Indy is good defensively, but it's still the Packers. I just think this is a smash spot. But you're right. The percentage, again, and how you win tournaments, Jones is going to be low-owned. And I think anytime we've seen Packers low-owned, that's the time you want to pounce on it. Moneybags, what's your true but not always true for DFS? You mean Vegas implied totals? If that's what you mean, I agree. I just think it's a good point to start because I've learned that from some of the pros that you want to try to start there just so you can get kind of a feeling of how the games are going to go and then watch the lines. But I have found some plays off of implied totals, but just elaborate on that, man, because I want to hear from you. We want to know what's up. I'm trying to sound cool. I'm sporting a Durham Bulls shirt. I bought this in Durham. I was broadcasting for the Pawtucket Red Sox, and I did a road trip there, and I had to buy it. Individual player performance are not always an indication of game total. Yeah, you're right. And you know where, Moneybags, you know where you're right, and I don't know if you do this or people do this on here. I look at the winning lineups. And some of the winning lineups are insane. One guy from that team, one guy from that team. But yeah, you're right. Especially in GPPs. I think maybe for cash games, you look at some of those high totals. And obviously, be smart about it, right? When we see certain games, Pittsburgh at Jacksonville, and Pittsburgh is implied to score a lot of points, I think that makes sense. Maybe the Patriots. I'm a Patriots fan, but I see their implied total on some sites 24-25. You could certainly make a case that they might not score that. The Patriots certainly, things are pointing. They beat Baltimore. They were at home. They're playing at Houston. Houston's 2-7. Also, I believe in using real-life data to some DFS or the way the best thing is if we knew the predictions, if we knew the outcome. But I think these weeks are tough because you have to factor in that the season is on the line for some of these teams. If Houston loses, they're done. They're 2-7. They're at home. New England won last week against Baltimore. They know, hey, we lose this game. Now, I know there's more playoff teams, and we've seen in this league when teams need to win, weird things happen. So I think that Moneybags is right. Look at implied totals, but also don't be afraid to make your own. I tweak mine. I try to have, I like to have all those games up there. I look at what Vegas thinks, and then I say, well, I'm going to lower that. I'm going to put this higher. I think this game could go higher. Division games, I think there's a stat out there that division games since 2001 have had an average point spread of 3. That the winning team is winning by 3. Regardless, it's amazing. And you think, everyone would have said for years in the AFC East, the Patriots, have dominated that and they've won a lot of division games. But even a lot of their games have been close. This is because you play that team twice. So that's why this Atlanta-New Orleans game, you think high total, but you don't know. So that's some good stuff. Think about it. If we could have a crystal ball, it would be really amazing, wouldn't it? Like, for instance, say we saw in this game, the Dallas-Minnesota game, that Dallas won 35-14. This guy would be in your lineup. He's going to get no ownership. On the road, probably no ownership. Possible Aaron Jones can outscore Cook. Maybe on DraftKings. I don't know. The thing I think you're going for dropping Cook to Jones, Jeff, is the salary. What you're trying to get. For Jones, for Cook in GPPs, and again, it's finding value. Cook's price, look at these 2 games. He has a potential to do that again. You know what I mean? Like, would you think it would be nuts if he did that against Dallas? Dallas is not a good defense. So, where Jones has had, that game against Detroit, bad defense, but we saw last year, he's involved in the passing game a lot. You're going to need, obviously, 3 touchdowns here. 3 touchdowns from Jones, 2 from Cook. I don't know if I would go there. I'm just saying that this could be a good pivot. Ownership's going to be low, and we've seen, and I've seen it before, and I've had some notes on this, that when Green Bay has been low owned, now sometimes they're maybe in a better spot than they are now, but these are the times, multiple lineups. Maybe you go Jones and Cook. Hill's going to open some value. But potentially with Indianapolis being a pretty good pass defense, maybe he gets a game like this. Or maybe not as many rushing yards. I cannot get off of playing Cook this week here. Let's hop on to DraftKings. Now, for the people watching and for the people that are rewatching, do you have to play Taysom Hill on DraftKings because he's listed as a quarterback? In cash games, no doubt. In tournaments, that's a tough one. I don't think you do. I don't think you do in tournaments. I think in tournaments, in the Millionaire, I don't think Taysom Hill will be in the winning lineup. I could be wrong. Yet you're going for 3-4 times value, and at 4,800, he doesn't need much to get to that. Really, I mean, look at this game. He had 14 points. He had a receiving touchdown. This doesn't have receiving because he's listed as a quarterback. I mean, he can easily get to that, but I don't think you have to play him. I think this week is interesting, especially the way DraftKings priced some players. And look, you get Cam Newton down here at 6,200. Cousins, if you want to be different, with a lot of people in tournaments are going to go with Cook. You go Cousins. Stafford, Tua, Wentz is going to be throwing a lot at 5,700. Rivers is a great play. I mean, look at Rivers. He's had some not great games, but this is not a terrific defense. Green Bay more against the rush. I don't know if I'd go there, but feel free to. And then keep an eye for this situation. Drew Lock's questionable. Minshew's questionable. Dalton's back at 5,300. I think Lamar will be low-owned in tournaments. I think Rodgers potentially will be. I think you got a lot of options. And here's the guy I love for receivers. I mean, look at this. Amari Cooper is 5,400 on DraftKings. I think that could be a potentially good stack. This is a secondary stack here. If I were to make a lineup on DraftKings. So what's the primary stack? It would be your quarterback, and you don't have to run it back. You can get weird, too, this week. This week, I think you can really get weird. You could even go Newton or Hill by himself. I think you could do that. This is one I've kind of toyed around with, playing Newton by himself without stacking him with anybody. Hey, Jeff, I love how you said no way Aaron Jones outscores Cook. In one of those 5 cents lineups, throw Jones in without Cook. I agree with you, though. And I'm glad you brought this up. Jeff's talking about there's no way. You easily get sucked into ownership. And I do, too, where Jones is going to be lower owned than Cook. But if you don't think that he's going to outscore him, don't play it just on percentage because you'll get screwed in it. So, I mean, here's something you could do. I mean, you could pair Newton with I mean, look at this. Plug in your defense. Who do you like defensively? I like to sort by this. Baltimore at home. I think Baltimore is going to play well this week. I really do, after last week. Tight ends. I like Jared Cook this week. This is just the sample GPP lineup. I think for the price. Squeeze in another running back. I like teams at home. Remember, Swift is out. Mike Davis. And then this is where you can get weird. Do you do something like this? But in tournaments, you want high ceiling guys. But there's a lot of ways I think you can go. I think there's a lot of cheap things. All right, remember to follow me on Twitter. Or you can email me. It's antonellis.michael@gmail.com. I am not a teacher, Taylor. I wish. I'm a broadcaster. I'm not smart enough to teach. But also, check out Super Draft. Should we bring out Super? Yeah, we could bring